Welcome back to the studio, everyone. For those new to the channel, my name's Travis Rhodes. For those that haven't subscribed yet, I would appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. Hit that little bell so that you make sure you get a notification every time I upload a new video. After today's video, if you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up button. Leave me a comment in the comment section. Let me know how I did. Let me know if there's anything else you want to see or if you had any questions about today's episode. On today's episode, we're going to be going over a little trick in Photoshop for spot removal. With today's modern mirrorless cameras and other cameras used in all sorts of environments, with all of the lens changes we do and all the dust and stuff in the air, spots are inevitable. I've got a great little trick for removing spots in Photoshop that I think works better than just about everything else out there. It was taught to me several years ago after lamenting on social media that I had just received a really nice fine art print in the mail from my print house, only to find out that I had missed a great big sensor spot right in the middle of the image. And I had to get that image reprinted and overnighted to me so that I could get it into a competition. And from that point forward, I have used this spot removal method on all of my images to make sure I don't miss any. And it's a great little trick, and I'm looking forward to showing it to you. So let's jump right in. Sensor spots and dust spots can be very distracting in certain images and not very distracting in others. In this first image that you can see on screen, this is a waterfall scene up in the Smoky Mountains. Lots of visual interest going on here. Lots of textures in the trees, in the water, there's rocks, stuff everywhere. Sensor spots and dust spots aren't really going to show up in this image. There's just so much going on that you just won't see them. But if you take, for example, this image that has a very clean sky, not a lot going on in the sky, those sensor spots and dust spots are going to show up, and they're going to be really distracting and really take away from an otherwise good image. So today we're going to look at ways to remove sensor spots and dust spots from images, both in Lightroom and in Photoshop. My preference is to use Photoshop, and the method I'm going to teach you today. Alright, now we're here in Lightroom to start editing this image. As you can see on screen, this is an image that would be adversely affected by having sensor spots showing up. You can see a couple of them right here and here and here. These are just, the hazards of a bad habit of mine, which is changing lenses in the field all the time. Always changing lenses to make sure I get just the right composition or just the right angle on a subject. And I usually don't worry about the fact that I'm going to get a little dust in there because I can usually just take them out in Photoshop. I do have a tendency to clean my sensors quite a bit. I've learned how to do that since the Sony sensors seem to be dust magnets. So I've had to get really good at cloning out spots. And for a while I was only using Lightroom. And as I explained in the intro to this episode, I got a print back for a competition that I had missed a spot. I'm not sure how I pulled that off, but I did. So this process was shared with me by a friend on social media when I was lamenting about how bad that was to miss that spot. And so this new technique is really good at finding those spots that are harder to see. It does a much better job than Lightroom, but it does it in Photoshop. But right here in Lightroom, you can see that this is a virtual copy of the same image, and it has already done some of the sensor spot removal using the spot removal tool. But you can see that this one here has kind of pulled from somewhere else and made this blue spot right in the middle of that gradient. And again here, it's done the same thing with pink right in the middle of what should be more blue. And this is the problem I have with how Lightroom fixes spots. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I can go up here to this one that's up in the corner and click on it, and it fixes it no problem, and I can't even tell that it was there. But I have these that didn't fix well, or I have some in here that are, covering different colors or patterns, and I don't want to let Lightroom figure that out. So I tend to do those in Photoshop, and the way we do that is we export our image over to Photoshop. Okay, now we're here in Photoshop, and I have this created as an action that you can see right here called Spot Finder. I'm not going to play that action, I'm going to show you how I created it. So we're going to start by creating a new action, and we will call it Spot Finder. And the first thing we want to do is open a curves adjustment layer. So again, that is making a new adjustment layer on the curves. And then it's going to get a little crazy and it's going to look a little funny. Bear with me, I promise this works. We're going to start dragging points up and down. And it's going to start making a really psychedelic looking image. But we're going to just do a whole bunch of them back and forth so that we take them all the way up to the top and all the way down to the bottom until we get something that looks about like that. And then we can hit the stop button on the recording for making that action, because it's that simple. That is all the Spot Finder action needs to be. And what you can see here is that has really shown us where we have some great big spots that we need to work on. That one there, very clear, very clear. These were the ones that Lightroom had tried to fix already before we brought it into Photoshop. Here's one that we didn't fix. So now that you have that created, the next thing to do is to go back to your background layer or the layer that you're working on. And I use the marquee tool in an elliptical shape to select that spot. Shift F5 for content aware fill, and it's gone. You need to make sure that you are on that layer of your image, not on that curves layer. And just go through and repeat the process for all those little spots. Yes, it can take a little while, but the result is worth it because all of a sudden those little spots are gone. And what you can see is that Photoshop, using content aware fill, has done a much better job of blending that gradient that Lightroom didn't do a good job at. All of a sudden that looks nice and clean again, whereas in Lightroom it didn't look very good. See, this one right here, I didn't even see that one in the original file. I didn't see that one until this Spot Finder brought it out to me. So going through, that's what Lightroom did right there. Lightroom made that big blue circle right in the middle of that little pink gradient, and it didn't look very good. But the Spot Finder tool and content aware fill in Photoshop does a much better job. It fixes those gradients, and it's a smooth, clean transition. That one's right there is terrible. How can Lightroom think that that's the right way to do that? But just go through and take the time to find them all. I find that it's really important to do this step early on in the edit process. I like to do this usually right after I come into Photoshop. I will probably do my horizon trick first that we learned in episode 1. But then the next thing I usually do is finding all those spots. I don't want those spots being edited by all of the things that I do next in my edit process. So again, it's just a real easy little action that you can create for yourself and keep in your actions, so that when you want to, you just go hit that spot finder, hit play, and it will make that curves adjustment layer for you in just a matter of a second, and then you can go about finding all of those spots and cleaning them up. It's a really easy tool. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it, and I hope it makes finding spots on your images a little bit easier the next time you're editing. Again, please, if you like this content, please hit that thumbs up button, leave me a comment in the comment section, and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in this week. See you next week.